and he had destroyed his villa in Morocco, and the landlord of the villa was quoted as saying, "He must leave. He has violated every tenet of the Quran."
Oh my God. Jesus Christ, Russell.
Welcome back to the Be Mean Fast Forward podcast. My name is Charlie Jake Sanchez.
My name is Kat Solko.
I have seen a lot of movies.
And I have not.
And we are here to discuss 2000 Ridley Scott Gladiator.
Wow.
Gladiator.
Finally.
24 years ago.
Don't
this
say
movie
that.
was released in theaters.
Y2K.
Starring Russell Crowe. I mean, what do you know about Gladiator?
Well, I was 6, and Gladiator was always synonymous with Troy in my head. Mm-hmm. I thought they were the same movie. I also thought that 300 was like a Gladiator sequel or something, or a Troy sequel. Again, I don't really know the difference. I know they were different, right? The Trojans and the Romans, are they different?
Yep.
They're not the same thing?
They're not the same thing.
My mom's rolling in her bed. She's alive. She's a history buff.
A history buff. Your mom is, yes.
So
she works at a
she's
museum,
really disappointed in
an art
me
museum,
right now.
but still, neither way.
So the Trojans were Greek?
The Trojans fought the Greeks, I think.
Okay.
Trojans,
so
I think, were totally their
they
own
all
thing.
wore sandals, and that's in my head the same. And that's all I know.
All right.
And I know the theme song.
Sure. Yeah, you know the score pretty well.
I think it was just that, like, the theme song comes up in a lot of my, like, movie soundtrack playlists.
Yeah.
Because it's very famous, I think.
That's a spoiler for those playlists.
Is it? It doesn't have words that I can understand.
I do kind of feel that way. Like, recently we've been playing the I'm Not There soundtrack. I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Not There, the Bob Dylan movie. And I feel like I'm cheating. Like, Kat hasn't seen it yet. So I shouldn't be showing her or having her listen to the soundtrack. She has no idea.
I don't have any context.
As soon as you watch the movie and you hear the songs, you're going to be like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Gladiator, big deal. I won't say too much, but
we haven't seen the second one
phenomenon.
either.
We have not seen the second one. We probably will not see it and record it on this podcast. It's just getting away from us. And unless it's like spectacularly good.
We might do a beaming at the movies.
We will see.
We will see. Freaking love it.
We have attempted to match the movie, the sequel that's in theaters with the movie that we're currently covering, and it's just getting away from us way too fast. And so I think
when we're a more well-oiled machine, I think that'll be the system.
Correct. But, yeah. But for now, this is what we have, and we're gonna turn on Gladiator and get back to you.
Yay! Men in sandals.
And we're back.
Whoa! Russell.
Kat. So let's preface this conversation. I forgot to do this in the intro, but Ridley Scott, what does Ridley Scott mean to you?
Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. Alien.
Yep.
We're doing a real Ridley Scott
I know.
month.
I think he's the most watched filmmaker on the podcast thus
Really?
far. Yeah. I think Denny, it might be a tie with Denny. I'm not sure.
Wait, we did Alien.
Yep. Alien. We didn't do Blade Runner. We've
just talked about Blade Runner
never
a lot.
Mind. Oh, wow. Yeah. It feels like we've done Blade Runner. That's so crazy.
Okay.
Okay, what did you think about Gladiator?
It is a movie. And I mean that in as a compliment. It's like kind of Hollywood at its like biggest.
Yeah.
And most extravagant and most like almost like acid washed filter on everything.
Yes.
The afterlife thing really was like wigged my eyes out a bit. Mm-hmm. The colorless,
as well as the 45-degree shutter that is used throughout the movie that I think is screwing up your eyes.
Is that the slow-mo that's not really slow-mo?
It's fast-mo. It's like the
fast-mo.
It's like very, very fast all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Or they're fighting and the movements are so quick That's the 45-degree shutter. There is slow-mo throughout the movie, but
Right.
They employed a technique that essentially speeds up. Yeah, has the shutter speed is higher to just create this like fast-moving action.
Didn't Mad Max do that?
Mad Max does speed ramps, and,
Oh.
and they probably I think they do they experiment with 45-degree shutter as well. But you've never seen Saving Private Ryan? This was like huge in Saving Private Ryan. We won't talk about it, but everybody out there knows what I'm talking
Do
about.
they
when I
save him?
say Saving.
That's the question.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Oh,
although there is
sorry.
a destination. Back to Gladiator. So,
Should we recap?
all right, to recap Gladiator, for those who are watching this without seeing Gladiator or haven't seen
Haven't seen it in a
Gladiator in
while.
a very long time, story of Gladiator is about Maximus, Meridius. What's his last name?
No freaking clue.
I forget. Right, literature. This is off to a great start.
Maximus.
And it's about Maximus, and he's a Roman general, and it's the opening is a giant battle. It's the conclusion of Rome's long 12-year war, I believe, against a series of tribes and
Germania.
Germania taking over more property and land, and Maximus, inglorious spectacle, wins the battle, meets with Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, and you find out he's dying. He believes that Rome should be a republic, and he wants to pass it off to Maximus to give it back to the people. And the wrench in that plan is Marcus Aurelius' evil son, Commodus, played by Joaquin Phoenix.
Evil.
Marcus Aurelius, played by Richard Harris, fantastic in the role, very small. I think it was the last thing he did before he died. That and Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, I think it was.
I didn't
really close
realize
proximity.
when. No, keep going.
Yes.
Max.
Yeah, yeah.
Keep going. Keep
And
going.
so
We always do this.
Then Commodus murders Marcus Aurelius and declares himself emperor and makes Maximus kiss the ring. Maximus refuses. He leaves. He tries to leave. He gets seized and they attempt to kill him. He escapes. He's trying to find his way back to his home where his wife and kid are. That's where he went to go after the battles were won.
He's always trying to get home.
Always trying to get home. Yeah. And more ways than one. And so he goes there. He finds that Commodus has murdered his wife and child. And he is exhausted. He has a wound. He passes out, is essentially sold into slavery, and has to fight in these series of games throughout the Roman Empire as a slave. Mm-hmm. And then he makes his way to Rome because Commodus has, to win over the people, he's decided that he's bringing back the Colosseum. And so Maximus comes back to Rome as a gladiator and...
in a revenge
plot.
story.
Yeah. Chaos ensues, and Commodus finds out that Maximus is the gladiator that has won over the hearts of Rome. And essentially... Twice, a lot of times.
Keeps doing it. He
It's
keeps winning the hearts.
He's got the juice, as the kids say.
And Commodus does not.
He challenges Maximus to combat, stabs Maximus, and Maximus has to fight with a wound. Maximus overcomes, kills Commodus, and then dies, goes to the afterlife to meet
Finally
his wife
gets
and
to
child.
his freaking wife and kid.
That is the fastest recap we've done in a long time.
Yeah, I was really trying not to interrupt with tangents.
Very impressive.
Thank you. I almost did, but yeah, we'll get to him.
That is Gladiator. Back to the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. The giant, spectacular battle in the forest
really
against
cool
the
opening.
tribes of Germania. Astounding opening. I honestly, this is hot take. The movie doesn't really sustain the opening. The whole way through. Like, it has moments where it jumps out.
Yeah.
And reaches certain heights, but that opening is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite battle, and it's over pretty quick. My favorite battle that I think I've ever seen in a movie.
It's like, it takes a good chunk of the opening. It's a nice, like, kind of like book opening where it's like a huge setting and a huge scene, and then it goes Gladiator, and then the story starts.
It's also a fascinating use of like imagery to tell you all about Maximus's character and the way that the men respond to him.
Totally.
And they watch him the whole time.
They establish that he's a honorable person.
Honorable. Everyone looks up to him. He has clearly won the respect of all of his soldiers.
Yeah. And he fights alongside them and risks his life with them and saves them and they save him. And, you know. And I didn't realize, so what I was going to say is I didn't realize when they kept cutting to the old man on the horse, I was like, okay, he's important. And they kept cutting back to him. And then the second he starts talking, I'm like, oh, that's Dumbledore. I actually always wrote down, there's always a Gandalf / Dumbledore. And I didn't know that was the man who was Dumbledore originally.
Right. That's right.
So he has this incredibly distinct way of talking and saying sentences. And you know exactly, like, immediately who he is. And I thought that was an affect he put on for Dumbledore. And it's just like, that's the way he acts.
No, Richard Harris, renowned British Shakespearean actor, did incredible work all his life. And at the end here, that scene where after the battle and he's like, I'm dying, Maximus. And he basically goes back and forth with him. They talk about Maximus's home and how beautiful and well done that scene is. Like where you establish how much it means to him to get back home, how much his life, you know, that he's been away from for 12 years.
He knows down to the day, like how long he's been gone.
Yeah, or however many years. I forgot how.
I think it's 2
maybe
years.
It's 2 since he's been home.
Yeah.
But he's been fighting for a long time as the general of the Roman armies. And I think it's just a tremendous performances by both of them in that scene that truly do set up the injustice that comes after and the way it makes you feel. And especially, you know, from there, the killing of the wife and child. That is iconic. I remember feeling so overwhelmed with anger as a kid watching this movie.
It's injustice, yeah.
Yeah. Incredible injustice has been done to this man. And you're on his side. How could you not be?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you're on his side before that, too. So it's like,
very true.
I just want to point out, I have a little man. A little man right behind me. So that's not my extra shoulder. I just wanted everyone to see that he was napping.
It is unclear. It does look like you have a third limb, and
I just got a little rump right here.
Your paws look very, very nice.
Those aren't mine. Yeah. I did not know. I knew very little about this movie. I mean, I knew they were going to be gladiators.
They were going to be gladiating.
They were going to gladiate all over the place. But I didn't know who was in it besides Russell Crowe. So when Joaquin Phoenix shows up, I'm like, oh, whoa. And he's so young. Yeah. And he has like a baby face in this almost.
Oh, yeah.
Because we just saw Joker 2 where he's like gaunt.
It's been a hard 24 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So perfect casting on Joaquin Phoenix.
It was originally up for, I think Jude Law was up for that role. And
different version of the same character.
I mean, it would have been great, probably, but Joaquin sent in a tape and it was a knockout, they said.
I think that Joaquin Phoenix brings like a certain sliminess that is required. Jude Law would be too conventionally, like, you'd almost want to be on his side a little bit.
I mean, look, we've talked about the talented Mr. Ripley on this podcast, and so there are weaknesses to that character. Jude Law can portray weakness, but the way that Joaquin's weakness turns into that cunning and that evil, sensibility it's incredible.
I think the difference is. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
No, I think the difference is that Joaquin, when he's saying like, no, I'm not brave and I'm not righteous, but I have other qualities. Yeah. And like, I wouldn't necessarily believe that Jude Law wouldn't be like brave and like, I don't know why. I think it's just his style of acting is way more like earnest, whereas Joaquin Phoenix has this like really nuanced, kind of like creep, like slime ball portrayal where he's like, no, I was always a coward and I was always like too this, too that, like too cunning, too ambitious. But like those are good qualities sometimes too. And you never saw them as good qualities. It's so like, I mean, at the end of the day, all stories are about daddy issues, and that's
Of course,
and that's
yes. I mean, every story that we seem to like. Anyway, probably nothing there.
No.
So Joaquin gives that speech about, I have these other qualities, and then Richard Harris responds with, "It's not you, it's my failings as a father."
Yeah.
And so whatever he just said doesn't matter. Like even if Joaquin was able to get his dad's love and approval in that moment, he's like, you know what, you're right. Wow, I've been wrong this whole time. That's not what he says.
No.
He's like,
oh, you're just a fuck up, but not because of you,
It's
because
because
of
of
me.
me.
But it's still like, but you're still a fuck up. Like
who knows what would happen if he did get his father's true love out of this, or if he's just a rotten egg.
or if like he'd always be wanting more because his personality is like always unsatisfied and always like needing more
lean
power.
More,
I probably that, and it's great
nurture.
that it's not said, but you can kind of tell because of the way he's so insecure and like constantly like there's this like insecurity, desperation for approval, and like, oh, did I miss the battle? And like,
so funny.
so funny. I was trying to get to the battle. It's like, no, you weren't. But you want him to think you were.
Yeah, exactly. And you want the men around him
And he
to
sees
think,
through you.
Yeah.
And that's what you hate most.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the iconic, I can't remember this story, the bird tracking, when he sees the bird on the branch and then he watches it and the bird flies away and Maximus tracks it with his eyes, and then he's like got a little smile, and then he like looks at the battlefield and then just grims out. Poetic moment in this, what is about to take place.
Yeah, it's visually symbolizing like, oh, this man appreciates the beauty of life, but also has the like power and harnesses his power to be deadly and
I think
fight.
Ridley, if I'm not mistaken, this is a video I watched where Ridley was like, I honestly, with the script, we'll talk about the script, but Ridley's like, I didn't know if we were going to have a movie. And when Russell did that, he was like, we got it. We got the goods. Like,
interesting.
Russell's performance in this, I cannot imagine the movie without him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's one of the more, and at the time, it was roundly accepted as one of the great performances that anyone had ever given, and created this creation of this character. And stepping into those shoes is difficult. The way that this character is talked about, the way that he is seen, how could you live up to that kind of? And I thought, Russell Crowe did a phenomenal job.
I love when in the opening when he goes, they said no, and you're like, how does he know that? The dead body is coming with the head chopped off, and it's like, oh yeah, no, that didn't go well. Okay, yeah. I just love that. Like, do you think the negotiations went well? Nope. See, clearly they did not. We're gonna have to kill some people. Yeah, I think that the movie in its totality is not the most subtle to me, but the opening was very subtle. So I wonder
completely agree.
What happened during the whole filming.
So there are thank you for segueing right into this. David Franzoni, the writer, is that his name? David Franzoni. Yeah, David Franzoni was the writer on this, and he had written this based on the book Those About to Die. Oh, I wish I wrote down the author's name. Those About to Die. And
he made a TV show about it recently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they had that book had been written in the 70s, I believe. He had read it in the 70s after it had been published. No, it was written in the 50s or 60s actually, and he read in the 70s. As he was traveling through Europe, he read the book in Baghdad, Iraq. It had been given to him by this Australian woman. I think he was on like a motorcycle tour in the 70s.
Cool.
And he, before even reading the book, he had noticed all the arenas all over Europe. And then once he got to Turkey, he was like, whoa, this was like a franchise.
Yeah.
This was like the NFL or something of its time.
It's literally,
right?
it's the organized sports of the time.
And the woman gave him the book and was like, you got to read this. And it is about that. It is about the franchising of the gladiator battles. And the original script had references to what actually happened. These gladiators would have so much sway, have so much public love that they had brand deals even back then for like olive oil and sandals or things like that. It was like, that was in the original script. It was decided that it was people would think it'd be too anachronistic. But so the script, Russell Crowe hated the script. They only had really like 35 pages that were like filmable, considered filmable. And
based on his opinion alone?
Based on most everyone's opinion, it was like, this is kind of unworkable in the way that we want to do it. I think it was also supposed to be more historically accurate.
Okay.
And the Commodus character being the way that he is with Marcus Aurelius, it wasn't necessarily like that. It was more of a passing of the torch in real life. And Commodus was a cunning, not likable, emperor, but his dad didn't really have problems with him. Commodus had been ruling.
Know of.
Yeah, true. But Commodus had been ruling for, I think, 3 years before the dad passed the torch. It was essentially like they were sharing power.
I see.
And
or he was poisoning him behind the scenes.
Or he was poisoning him. Yeah.
Just saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
They had brought in John Logan to do a rewrite.
Who's that?
John Logan had written Any Given Sunday. He's a renowned screenwriter as well. But it was still not up to, Russell standards or...
Was he a big movie star at this point?
Russell was becoming a big movie star. Russell got this role because of LA Confidential. LA Confidential had come out, made him a big star. It was in 1997, I think. He had just got done shooting The Insider with Michael Mann, and he was like bald because he was wearing like a wig in The Insider. And so he was really full of himself. And I think now he's kind of like humbled out a little bit, but once the filming had started, they were burning through pages so much quicker than they thought. And I think, probably that big battle scene was probably the first thing they shot, maybe.
Yeah?
Maybe, I don't know.
I was just curious if you knew or thought that maybe
not.
That was a Crowe addition, or do you think, my question is, do you think that Crowe's like dislike of the original script made the movie more on the nose, or did it, or was it like those little pockets of like really good subtle storytelling?
It's widely agreed upon that the kind of like the structure of the movie and the lines and stuff, there were some things that... So William Nicholson had been brought on. He was a playwright. He did this play Shadowlands. I'm not familiar with him, but he had come on to do rewrites after the John Logan thing, and everybody was working together. I think it was like kind of a collaboration, and Russell Crowe hated that too. Like there were lines where a producer was quoted anonymously. Russell didn't want to say the line that's in the trailer that's like really famous, in this life or the next I'll have my vengeance. He thought these were just like really ham-fisted things, and he's quoted as saying, I'm the greatest actor alive, I can make anything work. Like, essentially.
So do it.
Essentially.
So say the line.
Right. And he did say the line.
Yeah.
And it's, it's iconic.
That's interesting. I agree that I can't remember what TV show it is. I haven't seen any actual episodes of it, but there's this TV show about Greek, Roman, who knows. The language is so modern and like casual that I saw a clip of it maybe on TikTok and I was like, oh, I'm never watching this because it's like, Jessica didn't go out with me last night. Like literally, and they're in ancient Greece. And I'm like, okay, listen. People lived to maybe 40. They had to use their words like a little bit. I think things were more dramatic back then.
That is really interesting that you said that, because the first draft or the first couple drafts of the script had things like put that in a museum, or like anachronisms like that we use today. And Connie Nielsen, who plays Lucilla, is quoted as saying like, "Do you want me to say it like this?" Because it was so modern.
Right.
So it's interesting that.
So like if there are phrases that seem ham-fisted, I understand to a certain extent, like an actor not wanting to say it because it sounds over dramatic or melodramatic, but these guys are fighting to the death over and over and over again for the chance at like a little bit less slavery for themselves and like a little bit more money. Yeah, I think things are pretty like dire every single day.
That's a great point. I think I also believe that I would have to believe that the screenwriters who worked on this were also complete fans, or had ingested so much of like the early Gladiator movies or Spartacus or whatever, that where things were a little more, Shakespearean.
Ben-Hur. Totally Shakespearean. Yeah. So I think if you think of it like that, if it's Shakespearean, Shakespeare could be considered melodramatic all the time, but it's poetry. It's like, oh, in this life or the next, I will have my vengeance is like a cool line.
Super cool. Yeah.
It's not like that's what they thought. That's what all of ancient Rome thought was like, oh, what I do in my life matters in my eternal life. And like,
very true. Yeah.
They really, that's all they believed was like, this is a temporary life. And if I do well here, I can live in glory for all of eternity.
And that's a interesting point, because I mean, back then the philosophers were so outsized. People always joke like comedians now are the philosophers of our day, and what a sad thing that is. But
I mean, I see the thought process.
Sure, given the state of comedy today, I think is what I'm talking about.
And the state of the world.
Yes.
It's kind of comedic.
But yeah, I think that is true. I mean, Marcus Aurelius was a firm believer in Stoicism, and so it is fascinating to consider that as far as the screenwriting is concerned, as far as something that may sound silly on the page. Russell Crowe saying it the way that he says it, the gravitas that he delivers it with, it works.
I also think that like a lot of lines read on the page very cheesy. And then like if I'm watching a movie and I'm thinking about the lines that they're saying as just like, it sounds natural, it sounds great on page, it's like extremely cheesy, super expositional, whatever that is. And then the good actors make it sound natural.
That's why whenever I often work with people on scripts and analyzing them for either auditions or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always try not to shit on the script immediately.
Right.
And there's constantly people are like, this script, I don't know. I'm like, don't like throw that out, get that out of your head.
Right.
Try to, earnestly approach this. And, I think I think a lot of the time we're a little hard on screenwriting. This movie though, however, like I do agree with Russell Crowe some of the time. This movie is incredibly, I think because of these problems with the screenwriting process they had on this movie, it's very on the nose.
Yeah, inconsistently, like there's inconsistency in terms of sometimes the movie's asking you to read between the lines.
Sure.
And then sometimes the movie's like, this is what we're showing you.
And
this is what you should think.
To me, is a lot of the time Joaquin's lines.
Yeah.
I felt like were incredibly on the nose, where he was constantly speaking in text. And that's a Shakespearean thing too. It's like he's stating his feelings about it.
Right.
And even when when there's subtext where he's like talking about murdering the kid, but he's not quite saying that he's gonna murder the kid in front of the kid, but the kid's like, wait, is he talking about murdering me?
Wait, what?
and so it's very unsubtle, and those were some of the things that I remember. I remember this movie very fondly. I loved this movie when it came out. Everybody I knew watched this movie so many times. My uncle, I think, had it on a constant loop in the house when we used to come visit. Shout out Uncle Dace. And
Dace?
and it was just a big deal. And so I had this idea of it in my head. I haven't seen this movie in at least 15 years. And watching it now, it really bugged me how it yada 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 the whole time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like someone had to deliver this monologue that was making up for something that was missing. Now, I will say, as many people in the audience know, Oliver Reed, who plays Proximo, who is the slave master for the Gladiators, he died during filming.
What?
They were in, I believe, it might have been Morocco at this point. It's unclear to me. He was in a pub, and he was a known booze hound, and a British destroyer pulled into port, and they were at the pub he was at. He challenged them to a drinking contest, and he died on the floor of the pub. Yeah. And so this is partially through filming, and so they made it up by getting a body double. It was early technology where they were able to face replace some of the performance.
Whoa. Weird.
Yeah.
Because I have a note maybe later where I'm like, damn, they really rushed Proximo's fucking death.
Yeah.
It was like, he said something like really nice and dramatic, and then they were like, stab, stab, cut away. And I was like, fuck, that was like one of the main characters.
They had to attack that on. I think Proximo was supposed to survive.
Oof.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that he died. I think that serves the story more. But whoa, I did not know that. That's crazy. Oh my God.
Russell Crowe was also drinking, boozing, and he had destroyed his villa in Morocco, and the landlord of the villa was quoted as saying, "He must leave. He has violated every tenet of the Quran."
Oh my God. Jesus Christ, Russell. Good God. That's so crazy that he had this like reputation and this image, this brand, because the Russell Crowe I know is like the one who can't sing in Les Mis, you know, like the like dad figure.
He's almost become like Uncle Russell.
Yeah, Uncle Russell Crowe. That like, oh, that's just a sweet old guy, you know. But no, he was a fucking menace.
Him and Christian Bale and Joaquin. I mean, to a certain degree, but like
I think at that point,
social media,
pre-internet, like almost new internet era, you could still get away with so much shit.
Right, yeah. People are still doing those things, but they're doing it in private.
Right. And probably earlier than that, like in the heyday of Hollywood,
God.
like it was so
Think about
fucking
how awful it must
chaos.
have been.
But I mean, like Gwyneth Paltrow, I just saw this interview from a while ago where she was like, "Oh yeah, I miss the '90s. You could just do cocaine in the club all the time," and it's just like, yeah, because no one had phones with cameras on them. Like it was, and then like the amount of cowing to like leading men, celebrities, egos was apparently like super rampant. They could just go, "Oh yeah, you can make me the lead of this movie, but I hate everything you've ever written. Rewrite it for me."
I know,
and then they'd be like, "Yes, sir."
It does feel like, I mean, who knows? No, it does. Never mind. I was going to say it feels like things have changed, but maybe not.
Who knows? I think it's definitely more hushed.
Yeah.
Definitely more, it's not socially acceptable anymore as much. So if it's going on, it's behind the scenes.
It is very strange though, because there is bad behavior on like streaming and stuff now. There's bad behavior happening in the public, but it's part of their brand, like people's brands now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the "Am I Not Merciful" line was a Joaquin Phoenix original. "Strength and Honor" was a Russell Crowe improv based off of his high school had like "Truth and Honor" or something as their Latin screed. And it's so interesting. Ridley was there. They wanted Ridley to do the movie. They didn't have a script, or they only had the working script, and so they were going to show him the working script. So the producers had showed him this painting, Pellice Verso, and it's a really famous painting. It's a gladiator with his foot on another gladiator with, I think he's got like a trident. And the gladiator who has the foot on him is signaling to the crowd like for judgment, and the crowd is like, yeah. Everybody's in the crowd is like bloodthirsty and and so they showed him this and they were like, we can show you the script, but this is like
This is the vibe.
the visual vibe.
Yeah.
And he was just, I'm in, I'll do it. He's like, well, you haven't read the script yet. And Ridley is like, I had been so experienced at that point as a director that sometimes there's just a split second decision you have to make, and he felt it in that moment.
And like all scripts have problems. We could work through it. I want to do this movie.
True. But Ridley, one of the great visual artists of filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that he would be like, that's the thing I haven't done. Like,
Side
I
note,
want to do.
I did not know the thumbs up was ancient. Like as a symbol, as a communication style.
Good. It's probably cavemen.
Like I never really thought about, when did people start going like, yeah, I approve, or no, I disapprove, or like, what am I gonna do?
What am I gonna do? Yeah. I
have no idea.
I love Joaquin's like.
Yeah.
Man.
Honestly, I think my favorite performance, even though he has the on the nose lines, like, I think he does really well as an actor in that he makes it make sense for the character to be so on the nose. Like he's just a crybaby sometimes, and
vulnerable the whole time, weakness.
Yeah,
vulnerable.
So, like he's weakness personified, and he's just voicing, I want people to love me. Why doesn't anyone love me? And like, if they can't love me, then I guess I'll make them fat and happy and like distracted. And you know, it's the thesis of like bread and circuses. Yeah. So I always think about that too.
Well, they're literally
like,
throwing bread into the audience at one point, and I was like, oh yeah.
That's it, you keep the people fed and you keep the people entertained. They really don't care about anything else.
Yeah, Joaquin, I think in an interview once he was talking about working on this, and he felt his performance, I think, is informed by his nerves and him feeling like he was doing a bad job and that he was.
Well, his accent's not great, but
right.
But if they just made him an American, like let him have his own accent, I feel like he'd be more confident.
The Denzel-ification of Gladiator 2.
Who knows if that's gonna work for us? But like,
I think it's gonna work for me. I have good feelings about it.
Make the actor as confident as possible. If they're filming and they're like, man, he really can't do a British accent, and you can tell that he knows that, make it like let him have his own voice, and then. I think that there's so much anachronistic bullshit in movies anyway.
Well, it's terrible now. I mean, in the ways that like there are certain TV shows where the anachronism is the point,
right?
And it's so over the top. But look, if you're leaning into it, you're leaning into it. And
yeah,
love
exactly.
Those shows,
like audiences suspend their disbelief as long as what they're consuming is entertaining and well done.
And it's telling you what it is. It's going. Turn off your brain.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about that.
Just
part.
focus on what they're saying, not
or
how they're
their
saying
performance.
it.
And Denzel, for example, it's interesting because he did Much Ado About Nothing. Is that right? Yeah. And he is not necessarily speaking in a British accent, but he is speaking in a Shakespearean one.
Right.
And
a more refined American accent.
I'm excited about the Gladiator 2 thing because I hear it's like super Brooklyn. Like he's
come on, gladiators.
Denzel.
Hold on, he's like, okay, can we talk about real quick? The soundtrack is just the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, pre-Pirates of the Caribbean. Hello, Hans?
Yeah.
Hans, baby. I understand like recycling some motifs, but like every single one, I was like, dun, 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 dun. I was like, are you kidding me? This is just, and maybe if I had seen them in order, I'd be like, Pirates of the Caribbean is a total ripoff of Gladiator, but Pirates of the Caribbean came first for me, so.
Well, yeah, it was 3 years later chronologically.
He was like, listen, I'm busy. Can we just take some of this and just copy it over here? We'll figure it.
Well, that has to do, I think, with some of the influences that Hans is pulling from. I believe his True Romance, like the most famous "You're So Cool" from True Romance, is from a different composer, like an early composer's work that he's referencing. So thing about Hans or people like Hans who are considered geniuses is they do pull from history. They do have a cult of genius around them where they have a million assistants and they have a million
Yeah, they have a million ghost composers.
yeah, ghost composers
helping.
or what are they called? It's like just assistants on references. Hans, Kanye West. This is something that happens.
No, yeah,
all the
I mean
time.
it's one man's name on the score, but
That's why I love Tar so much, because that movie is about all the people propping up a genius, and
Totally.
the movie did not get enough love.
amen.
The best picture every year, basically. So Ridley and Russell have worked together 4 times total, 3 times since this.
Oh, okay. This
And-
was their first.
Yeah.
Got it.
And Russell's quoted as saying, "One of these days we should do a film where we know what we're going to shoot before we start."
Well, that's funny because I heard that Ridley Scott's a pretty exacting director.
Yeah, but my man has 8 cameras going. He's he wants to make the day. He wants to make that day. Yeah.
Meaning what?
Meaning he's not like Clint Eastwood where it's all right, 1 take in the books. He is trying to capture it all very quickly. He is trying to, and he has a specific way of doing it. It's the same way with Fincher and those 8 cameras that he used, the red cameras, in addition to, I think, the Venice or whatever on The Killer, where he capturing everything. And
Right.
some of that's for compositing, and some of that is for performance, and some of that is, it's just to
I mean,
make
yeah,
the
that
day.
would be my thought too. What was the thing that we just saw about Ridley Scott where someone didn't like his style directing, and why?
The cinematographer for Gladiator 2,
Oh, really?
yeah, is quoted recently as saying,
Fuck that guy.
no, it's just Ridley has one way of working that not for me, but
Never again.
and that's what he's talking about is that multicam thing where he just wants to get a move on, I think
Interesting.
filmmaking, traditional filmmaking is you light
You
the
take your
one
time
the one shot
with
or
what
the
you're
one
doing,
scene
yeah.
one at a time, and you really take your time doing it. Ridley is kind of that was good enough, and he knows that he's gonna find the movie in the edit. I think is a big part of Ridley's, and
Yeah.
and to his detriment at times, people with the most recent Alien movies feel what the hell.
Yeah. Yeah,
Gladiator
I think
2
that's
seems to be his best reviewed movie in a minute. Now that
Really?
I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really notice it in Alien, to be honest. I definitely noticed it in Blade Runner, though. I was like, sorry, what's the emotional through line of this person? How did they get from here emotionally to here? I didn't see it, and it wasn't talked about, and it wasn't subtexted about. So, and yeah, that's a consequence of that kind of style of filmmaking, which is I think we got it. Let's just move on. And
Yeah.
okay, that would drive me crazy as an actor.
Some of them are more esoteric than others.
What
Blade
does
Runner.
esoteric mean?
Esoteric meaning I think the mystery is a part of it. Blade Runner is wait, what? How is this person what is this person feeling?
Sure.
What is this person? Are they a person? The whole movie of Blade Runner is that concept.
Yeah.
And so that to me feels intentional. Some of the other ones, it does feel a little bit lazier, like a Prometheus, which we talked about many times on this pod.
We need to rewatch that.
No, we do not.
Come on.
I've watched 12 clips of Prometheus since we watched it.
We already did a whole podcast about Prometheus when we did
Basically.
Alien Romulus. Can we talk about how dead giveaway that he's never going to see his wife again is that she's not a famous actor?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's an extra. I really don't think she's going to get a line of dialogue.
One of the few brown people in the movie is an extra. Actually, there's a lot of brown people in this movie.
There's
are a lot of
one of the few
brown
that
extras.
I grant you. But is she a brown person? I thought she was
I
just
think she's Sicilian, Italian, something like that. Or yeah, I'm not sure. Although I think she has.
Are you saying Italian
lines.
people are brown people?
At one point they were. They still, yeah, kind of are.
Interesting. Interesting. I thought she was, a tan white woman.
Do you know who the Moors were?
The Moors,
Mm-hmm.
the black people in Italy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Othello.
There's like a big. Oh yeah, duh.
He's a Moor.
Yeah. I'm sorry, it just gets whitewashed from history. That's all. That's the reason why I was asking.
Okay, but also he was like, it's pitch black like my wife's hair, and they cut to his wife, and she has like golden brown hair. Like, if you're gonna cast a person of color, cast a person of color and make her hair pitch black.
That is interesting because I'm pretty sure they probably did some of that stuff afterwards or before. I don't know.
You can tell that some of this is like shot out of order and in a big way.
It said that he improv some of that speech about the home.
Oh, fuck, now we gotta dye this woman's hair black. Fuck. Russell!
So they shot it and they were just like,
Whatever. It's dark enough.
is her hair golden brown or is the color grade so
Dude,
extreme?
the color grade is so wildly unsubtle. I was like, listen, I think there's a way of portraying the afterlife that doesn't look like you actually went to hell. It's so like blasted with contrast that I can't even like look at it sometimes. It was really unsettling.
I do like a choice. I do like when someone makes a choice in a movie.
What I did like was the old school slow-mo that's like choppy.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. It's really nostalgic.
Oh, you're talking about
Effect.
not choppy. You're talking about the slow shutter speed. I think is just like that, like it's like smearing almost at times. And
No, this was like choppy slow-mo.
choppy.
That like
slow-mo.
they were going, 120 or 60 or whatever the slower frames. I don't know the technical thing, but like you could tell they were doing slow-mo on the cameras, or they were slowing down the rate of the film or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's choppy and it's like a kind of a nostalgic, like old school look to me.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'll try to find it.
Yeah,
and we'll put it up.
Because I'm thinking of the slowed down where it's like the slow shutter speed and it's like.
Maybe we're talking about the same thing.
I think we are talking about. the
Okay,
same
great.
thing. Yeah, just in different ways.
Can we talk about my guy,
Who's your guy?
Djimon Hounsou?
Oh, Djimon Hounsou. Love Djimon Hounsou.
Big old crush on Djimon Hounsou
Big
in
fan.
every single thing he's ever been in.
Big fan. And you haven't seen Blood Diamond, right?
No, but I have seen Beauty Shop,
Oh, Beauty Shop. He's really good in.
and he's excellent
He's
in
very
Beauty
handsome
Shop.
in Beauty Shop. Yeah, he's
God.
probably he's one of the
Queen
most.
Latifah was like, him.
Yeah,
I want him.
definitely.
Let
definitely.
me make out with him for a day.
He will. We're big fans of Djimon Hounsou on this
He's
podcast.
so good. He's just
Incredible.
so good in every single thing.
Djimon Hounsou, they were shooting these action scenes, and it was pretty intense. Like people were getting injured and hurt all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Djimon Hounsou stabbed someone in the head accidentally.
This seems like a fucking nightmare of a set.
Well, yeah, Russell Crowe, I think, like tore his Achilles, like threw out his shoulder.
That is from Troy.
So that I wanted to talk about that when you said it, but yeah, all those movies were in response to Gladiator.
So Troy's after.
Troy is after Centurion, 300. All those movies are. Wait, we need Sword and Sandal movies. Like 300, maybe not. I think it's based off a graphic novel, but same thing where they're like,
Sure,
"Give me
we're
all
gonna
the-
make it now
give
because
me all the
it's
property you could
profitable. Yeah.
find." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Djimon Hounsou, awesome. But
Yeah.
the quotes are hilarious about he's just like, yeah, I'd, like stab someone in the head. It was really
Sorry,
unsafe.
I don't know. No one was there to tell me not to. Sorry.
This movie, as the year went on, it was clear that Russell Crowe was probably going to win Best Actor, and he did. But Ridley Scott had given up producer credit because there were so many producers on the movie. And he was like, it's all good. Like, I don't need the credit as long as I'm being paid for the producing of the
Sure.
movie. And the Oscars come. It wins Best Picture. He is left out of the stage scrum. Like, he basically, like, there were so many people and he wasn't credited as a producer that he was just like, fuck it. And then he was like, I'm never giving up producer credit
what?
ever again.
That's crazy.
And he never has, and he never will.
Wait, sorry. This won Best Picture?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Best Picture, Best Actor.
I was saying, like, there's a decade here from, like, 96 to 2006
Yeah.
where movies were so on the nose and chose to be. And it's like, and they were so like spectacular. They loved the spectacle. They were throwing money into these things, like, and not always with like the result being necessarily some of the best cinema I've ever seen. I think that if the Gladiator was made today, I think if Gladiator came out as is today, it would not win Best Picture.
I mean,
I don't think
Dune
Gladiator
Part 2 might win Best Picture.
Not the same. Not the same to me.
I agree with you to a certain extent.
Dune
but I
Part
think
2 is such a subtle.
To me as well. Yeah. But I think
Epic.
there are some people who are like, that movie's kind of dumb. It's like a big dumb movie. I don't think so. I think it's like big smart sci-fi.
Yeah, big smart.
Yeah. But I agree with you on the merits of like the conversation you're having about what I like to call like the Bush era of movies.
Yeah.
Where
they're like, it's too complicated. The world's too complicated. Let's tell them what to think in these movies.
Even a movie like Lord of the Rings, where it very simple, straightforward.
Yeah.
What it's trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think that movie was what it was because of the time it came in.
Sure.
I mean, 9/11 happens. The movie, first one comes out, I think pre 9/11 maybe, or is it after 9/11? And then the next 4 years of that movie coming out, those movies coming out, I inextricably linked in my head.
Totally.
Of what the world was craving.
I think
in
it's
that
also,
moment.
it's like a brand of escapism that is like bred in circuses. It is like, oh, we're so sad in reality, so let's churn out.
Yes, however, but the whole, like the through line, the thesis of all those are good and evil.
Yeah.
Simple.
Totally.
Simple.
No gray.
And no gray. It's like
evil. The evil antagonist is evil. You do not have to empathize with him at all.
yeah, Sauron is the
Sauron's
most
like-
evil entity
Yeah.
ever. And the things that keep trying to make him a nuanced character. Look, I know the books. Okay, we're not going to talk about
What?
this.
We're not getting into
We're
Lord
not
of the
getting
Rings
into the Lord of the
right
Rings right now, but god damn it, dude.
I said all stories have daddy issues, dead wives, revenge guys, and toxic agents. And I'm talking about Proximo.
Yeah. Oliver Reed.
I also love I didn't realize until recently, I can't remember what I was watching, but I didn't realize that all the gladiators were slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And you could earn your freedom in very select circumstances where you became a celebrity and got brand deals and stuff. But for the most part, they were just slaves. And like, there was a huge culture of slavery in Rome with eunuchs and servants and an incredibly separated upper class of people who owned slaves. And then, like, I think that's why it's so rare for gladiators to become not slaves, because then it gives hope to every other slave that you can, like, get out of it. But it is, like, a really fascinating norm in society that they portray, I think, pretty well, where it's like, what is his speech? He's like, I am your mother and I am death, or I was there when you were born and I will be there when you die, or something.
Yeah.
And yet he becomes this like father figure to Maximus almost in place of Marcus Aurelius, which is interesting.
It's interesting the point that you make about the winning your freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And in actuality, the Commodus character was known for fighting in the gladiator tournaments. And I think what they said, a historian was quoted as him not being an inspired warrior. And and so us gladiators used to throw the fights for him. All
To
the
let him
time,
win?
To let him win. That would happen a lot.
That makes sense. I wish they showed a little more of that.
He eventually was, there was a plot by his sister to take over. He found it out. She was exiled, Lucilla. And Lucilla...
So these are real
Lucilla,
people.
Commodus, and Marcus Aurelius are real. And one or two, I think Quintus was a real general or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a few people who are based on real people. But yeah, the Commodus thing was like, he eventually got so paranoid because of all these attempts on his life, and his mistress had found out that he was planning to execute her and a series of other people, and so she created this plot to kill him. And she poisoned him. He vomited up the poison and was like fucked up, but was not dying.
Yikes.
So she had this wrestler who was in the Gladiator tournaments and stuff, come and choke him out in his bathtub. His name was Narcissus. Narcissus.
Cool.
Narcissus. How do you
Narcissus.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And so yeah. So
And then
that's
he
the
died.
real story. Yeah, then he died.
That's how he died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wild. I always thought.
Before he died, by the way, he had tried to change all of Roman culture in Rome to Commodus culture, and everything became named after him for like a year or two.
Sure.
And then he was immediately, basically, everything was restored upon his death.
They're like, all right, now that that's over.
There was a year of 5 emperors, it was called, where a series of successions happened. And then about 12 or so years later, I think, the Emperor Septimius Severus restored like his standing and deified Commodus for all the good that he did. It was interesting, really fascinating.
See, that's what I'm talking about. They're dramatic people.
Yeah, it's true.
They're dramatic people. They didn't have time for subtext.
We have talked about a series of, the highs and the lows of this movie. The highs of this movie are incredibly high. The performances are excellent. The dramatic, the things that are a little on the nose in the script make for a very dramatic, emotionally satisfying moments in the movie.
Yeah.
And so I do want to give credit where credit's due
Totally.
on a lot of the movie is great. It just is more flawed than I ever thought in my head. And so I'd be interested in how people feel when they revisit something like this and listen to the pod.
Yeah, and people who don't have the nostalgia, like
Yeah.
I don't. I feel like if I watched Troy, I would be like, ooh, interesting. But in my head, I'm like, oh my God, pretty cool, like kind of idea. Although I do remember the ending being like weirdly CGI. I can't remember what happens. Anyway, yeah, I think that there's like merit, and it was a cool movie and a big movie, and hopefully Gladiator 2 is like cool and big, and if it's not saying any more than that, then that's okay.
I'm so glad I watched this before watching Gladiator 2
me
because
too.
I am primed to kind of like it more because of how flawed I find this now. And so
It doesn't have as big shoes to fill in your head.
No. I, as long as it's entertaining, I think I'll like it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I will have opinions about performances and everything, but Ridley considers this a top 3 movie for him in his filmography, which I understand from a directing point of view.
Sure.
I do understand. Because it is quite a feat. Like, I mean, getting those tigers. There's a real tiger that was used at one point, almost killed Russell Crowe by 2 feet.
That tracks.
And the way that he mythologized, he was able to portray the myth. I really liked, and that opening scene, it's still is such a high mark for me.
Yeah, totally.
He had heard that was a forest in England. In Surrey, I think, near Surrey. And he had heard that they were going to cut it down. So he was like, can I set it on fire? And they were like, yeah. So that's why
Great.
it's so real.
Wow,
That
that's
was
nice.
so real.
That's sick. I love that.
So good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, that is Beaming Fast Forward, Gladiator, Ridley Scott, 2000. Do you have any thoughts to share before we go?
I think Bug would be really cute dressed as a gladiator.
Oh, true.
He has the chest, the barrel chest for it. So that's my thought.
He kind of looks like Russell Crowe.
He thinks he does. All right.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching, listening. Like, subscribe, follow, all the things.
Comment.
Share with your friends and family.
Yeah.
And tell us if we're wrong, if you feel very strongly about
I love to be
something we
told that
said.
I'm wrong.
Or if you have more information about the history or the movie.
Actually, if you know the difference between the Greeks and the Romans, please let me know.
And there's so much more info on the making of this movie that I'm sure we didn't get to, but
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Nice.
Bye, guys.
Good job.